Did you know that electronics can be incorporated into clothing to allow us to control robotics with our bodies? Stay tuned for more. Hello everyone, welcome to XM All Access. I'm Tamara Robertson and I'm excited to be a part of this series showcasing some of the coolest minds in STEM. As your guest host for this episode, I am excited to chat with microelectronics expert Dr. Korine Duval. Korine is an engineer with a PhD in both mechanical engineering and material science. Her role supporting the U.S. Department of Defense helps to ensure that our country has enough people to fill the high-tech jobs of the future, including careers in microelectronics. I can't wait to explore the world of microelectronics and learn how this important technology is leveling up for the future. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. As a chemical and biomolecular engineer, wardrobe designer, and welder, I've experienced the full range of materials the fabrication world has to offer and learned a ton along the way. This knowledge has helped me throughout my career, designing large-scale equipment for Fortune 500 companies and on shows like Mythbusters. Whether fabricating with metals or crafting costumes with textiles, I need to understand how the structure of materials shapes their performance and potential. Material science has been at the heart of my work, offering practical solutions and innovations across every project I tackle, but I still only scratch the surface in my day-to-day. So I am stoked to take a deeper dive and learn alongside all of you. Now it's time to meet our speaker. Korine, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamara. I'm so excited to be here. Microelectronics are a critical technology to our national defense and to our everyday lives, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you all more about that.
I can't wait to dive in. So let's start at the very beginning. Can you define microelectronics for us?
So microelectronics really breaks down into those two words you hear within it, micro and electronics. Micro really just means small, so think the width of your human hair. Electronics is absolutely everywhere. It's in your phone, it's in your laptop, it's in cars, boats, anything that you see that's moving, that you need to plug in, that needs a battery, it's using electronics, and it's most likely using microelectronics. What we use systems like this for are things like the video I'm doing right now. How can I get my picture over the internet? How can I get my voice over the internet? How can I record these things and store it in memory? And then think about other applications. How can we begin to expand the senses of the human body? How can I see at night? How can I hear ultrasonic vibrations? Microelectronics enables all of these things.
By definition, it seems so simple, small electronics, but most of us probably aren't aware of the complexities of this tiny technology that plays a major role in our day-to-day tasks. Korine, I mentioned earlier that you earned a master's and a PhD in mechanical engineering and material science. I'm curious how these two branches of engineering are interconnected with microelectronics.
So something that I really like about mechanical engineering and material science is that it really gave me a profound understanding of how the physical world works. I'm biased because I got my degrees in mechanical engineering and material science, but personally, I think that it's an engineering discipline that makes you the jack of all trades. When I was doing classes in mechanical engineering, I took courses with chemical engineers, I took some with electrical engineers, I took some with computer scientists, and you really end up getting a nice sample of all the different fields. How does fluid move? How can you build a bridge? How can you design a robotic system from programming it to getting the limbs to move? And then material science takes that knowledge almost a step further. When you have the foundation of mechanical engineering, then you can move beyond mechanical systems into how do the materials work? How do these interact together? How does one material make another material better or productive for us to use? So the way that this all connects back to microelectronics is these systems are still physical. When you think about power and electricity moving through things and giving you the ability to do work that's still physical, how can you transmit power? How can you cool something off that's gotten too hot? If you sit your laptop on your lap and now the fan is running and it's getting way too hot, how can you cool that down? How can you make it so that it's structurally sound if you drop your phone? Mechanical engineering and material science really gives you the tools to see electronics in a unique way and a different way. And I believe that all of the engineers can come together to solve these new and emerging challenges in microelectronics, because now we're getting to a point where systems are getting so tiny, it's just several atoms apart. How can you start to design it with a new perspective so that we can continue to have these performance enhancements?
It's so true. Collaborative efforts of different engineering specialties is what drives life-changing innovation. As a chemical and biomolecular engineer, I started my career on a greenfield startup. That means I came in right after groundbreaking and got to work with all kinds of engineers and STEM professionals designing and building a brand new facility. We then got to globally transfer a technological process from Germany to the USA. I learned so much from those around me, and each of our specialties and backgrounds brought different viewpoints and new strengths to the project. So what I did was large scale. But you mentioned that microelectronic systems have been engineered to be just a few atoms apart. That really is micro. Let's take a look at some other fun facts about microelectronics. How amazing that something so tiny can be so powerful. Korine, can you tell us why microelectronics are important to the Department of Defense?
You can use microelectronics to sense what's around you. Is something in the sky or is something underwater that we need to be aware of? You can use it for navigation. We use microelectronics in satellites for the Department of Defense. All of these things that you interact with in your day-to-day, try to think about ways that it can be used for national security as well.
I love this challenge. Okay, let's all take a few seconds to think about the things we use every day that are powered by microtechnology. Which ones do you think can also help keep our country safe? Let's take a closer look at microtechnology used by the Department of Defense. Maybe you'll see some of your ideas. Wow, the microelectronics we all rely on really do impact our national security. Korine, let's dive a little deeper. Is there anything unique about the microelectronics used in the defense industry?
So I started to get into this a bit when I answered the last question, but For microelectronics used in defense, you really, really have to put those through the paces to make sure that they are reliable, as in they won't break easily and they're going to last for a very long time. You can replace your iPhone once every year, but some systems in defense you're using for 10 years, 20 years, sometimes 50 years or more. And the longer you can keep that up and reliable, the safer we all are as a result. So for microelectronics in defense, you put them through a lot of different tests. You'll heat them up to extreme temperatures and cool them down to extreme temperatures to make sure they can survive when it's really cold and when it's really hot. You'll expose it to radiation to make sure it can survive in space if that particular item is supposed to go into space. You'll put it through shock tests. I've seen tests where sometimes you take a system, you hold it up really high, and then you just drop it. And you check to make sure it survived that drop so that it's hardy and it can really go through all these different trials and tribulations and still be functional in the end.
I think some of us wish our own smartphones could withstand that kind of drop test. So speaking of testing, are there any important questions that research engineers are focused on answering with regards to microelectronics? Like, what challenges are they trying to solve?
So this question makes me really excited because I am a research engineer. I got my PhD to be a research engineer, and microelectronics is one of the most interesting fields right now. Not only because it's so important to what we do every day, but because there's so much science that goes into it. I mean, how does a cell phone work? I really encourage everybody watching this video, go online and try to figure out, well, how does a cell phone work? How do we communicate? How does video work on a cell phone? And I promise you, the deeper you dig into that, the more excited you're going to become about it, like I am. And if you do get excited, then you'll know, hey, maybe I should go into microelectronics engineering. But right now, a really, really interesting field is how do we mature packaging? For a very long time, the way that people made microelectronics better was to just pack more functionality into the same space. So take those fundamental building blocks of your computer chips and pack more and more and more and more in. And the way they did that by making it smaller and smaller and smaller. But we're getting to a point where these things are just a few atoms apart. You can't make it much smaller. But how can you continue to improve the system without just shrinking it more and packing more functionality in? Well, you go a level up. So you have your computer chip, but that computer chip is in a packaging. It's surrounded by things to connect it with other chips, protect it from the environment, help it survive being dropped from very high up. And what researchers are doing now is finding interesting new ways to connect everything so that you can start to bring it closer together and increase the functionality, decrease the cost, and increase the power efficiency that way. It's a really exciting field. It's called 3D heterogeneous integration. It's a mouthful, but very exciting. 3DHI. Look it up.
How amazing is it that we've been so successful at making microelectronics small that they can't get any smaller? 3DHI sounds really interesting. I think we should dive a little deeper. Take a look. How cool is that? Korine, your engineering research experience has covered a lot of ground over the course of your career. Can you tell us about one of your favorite engineering challenges that you address as part of your job?
So when I first started my career, I worked at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. And when I was there, one of my research topics was wearable electronics. And it is exactly what it sounds like. How can you incorporate electronics into clothes? Well, the first question is, why would you want to do this? The reason why we wanted to do it was so that you could control robotics with your body. So if you flex your arm like this, then a robot arm would flex like this. You can imagine that that could be extensible to so many interesting topics, working with robots to achieve a task, or something like prosthetics. So if you want to flex your arm, how can you do it intuitively so just moving your body will move a robotic arm? The way we ended up doing this was combining a little bit of material science, a little bit of mechanical engineering, and a little bit of electrical engineering so that you have conductive fabric sewn into a sleeve. And then that conductive fabric is then connected to, in essence, a computer chip that communicates with the robotic arm. Ultimately, we were able to get a working prototype out. It was very interesting to do, so many different challenges. I learned about robotics, I learned about textile engineering, and I was able to work with a really awesome team of really smart people that were able to teach me things that I didn't know before. And that's something that's really drawing about engineering. Even after you've done all the school, you get your bachelor's, your master's, your PhD, and then you go out to work, you're still learning. Even now, all these jobs later, I'm still learning, and it's a journey. It's something that's really promising about it.
A career in engineering or any STEM field really is a journey of continuous learning. And the idea that our clothes can be smart, wow, that's just really cool. Now, for a topic near and dear to my heart, let's talk about being a woman in engineering. Even though we're seeing increases in the number of women obtaining STEM degrees, only about 14% of the engineering workforce is female. So what advice would you give the science-loving girls watching today who might be interested but intimidated about pursuing a career in engineering or microelectronics?
Part of the reason why I became an engineer is because I always really liked to build things and figure out how they worked and why they worked. And I liked science, I liked math. But when I went to my science classes and my math classes, oftentimes I would look around and I'd be one of the only women there. And in a way that felt lonely. But what I found, the older I got, the more I took these classes, the more education I got, the more I started to have a career in this, there are more and more women entering these fields every day. And now that I'm out in the world, I'm an engineer, I have my PhD, and I'm working, I can open the door for the next woman. And then the woman I mentor can open the door for the woman behind them. And something that was just so helpful for me as I was going through my journey was meeting older women in the field, being able to look up to them and learn from them and talk to them about the things that I was struggling with in engineering. Now I'm able to do that for people today. I would deeply encourage you to go out there, find a mentor, come to conferences, find people like me, ask them, how did you get through this journey? What are things that you've learned, and for advice? And you really do succeed and do better in this life by standing on the shoulders of giants before you so that you can be the giant next.
Yes, let's keep opening those doors for each other. Korine, Thank you so much for joining us today. You've no doubt inspired many students to investigate a career in the exciting fields of mechanical engineering, material science, and the world of microelectronics.
Thank you again, Tamara. It was great to be here. And thank you to the students for tuning in and hearing a little bit about my life and what brought me to this point.
I really enjoyed chatting with you about the exciting world of microelectronics and learning how important these tiny technologies are for everyone. And of course, thank you for tuning in today. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel in the description below. And of course, follow us on social media to get updates about new episodes. You won't want to miss any of them. Plus, you'll get access to fun weekly content for students and teachers. And don't forget to check out the full library of episodes available on demand right here. Each one has an NGSS-aligned lesson plan for teachers to use in the classroom. And each lesson also includes an optional social-emotional learning component. I had a blast being your host today. Keep up with me through social media here. But don't sign off just yet. You'll want to stick around through the end of this video for a fun trivia game that you can do in the classroom or at home. Have fun and good luck!